welcome to the settlement. I'm Fen, and in this video we're going to be looking at seed patterns, which I'm rather excited about. I think they're really neat. So, let's just get into it, shall we? Seed patterns have been around with us for a fairly long time, enough that they've changed the back of the cards have changed colour. They were originally black, they're now orange. But they weren't really formalised as a real locking system, a part of Kingdom Death, until the Gambler's Chest came out, and we got full rules and a way to integrate the seed patterns into any campaign that wasn't just draw a card whenever you get insight. It kind of still is that, but it's got a bit more to it now. So I've spent some time pulling together all of the seed patterns that are available on the simulator right now. I think I've got them all. They kind of got a bit scattered about rather than being together in one deck. So maybe I'll miss some, but I'm also definitely going to be missing the ones that have been printed in paper, because I'm just going to cover the ones that are on the simulator. It's still going to take a while to get through them all anyhow, all of these ones. So let's get to it and begin with what seed patterns are. So we've got our fundamental concepts, and the idea is they are these concepts, these sparks of inspiration that hit survivors, and then they have the idea for, I'm going to make this thing. Practically for us, they are additional crafting options, one of singular type thing on a card that, if we get the resources together, we can make. Now, one of the things about seed patterns is the order you get them in is pretty random. There's not much mitigation or control. We're not really filtering our way through a deck and selecting our choices in the way that we would do with innovations. Instead, we've just got a big deck and we will draw a card from it when we achieve the relevant triggers. And if it's not useful, well, we just need to draw more cards. So this is absolutely a system where one of the key ways of utilising it properly is to really just generate a lot of triggers, and you can get to that fairly easily with standard settlement practices, because essentially 3 plus understanding triggers insight, and insight will trigger gaining of a innovation. As for seed patterns themselves, let's just pull up the Elder. Turn the page. Misclicked. If we pull up the Elder's Aegis here, a little bit clearer than the diagram on the picture, you've got top left corner, the maximum number you can have in the settlement at any one time. So these are kind of unique, but not really, because sometimes the number can be a bit higher. Below that, we've got the seed pattern identifier, like the number. There's not too much of note about that, except negatives are for promo items, so they kind of tend to be a little bit wacky and not necessarily fitting into the whole ethos and theme of the game. So it's your choice if you're going to put them in or not. And otherwise, it's quite helpful to have the numbers, because you can keep all of the seed pattern gear cards together in numerical order and very easily just pull them out from the right position as when you craft a given one. Top middle name, pretty straightforward. Seed will always be on these cards. If you have the older ones, I think the trigger is called Insight before it got formalised into being Seed. Seed and Insight just kind of interchangeable. We should in the future get replacement cards for all the black-backed Insight ones. Look forward to that, because it is not easy to randomise the deck right now. I have opaque orange back sleeves, but they are for Japanese sized gaming cards, and that means they're too small for the bridge size. So I still have to kind of keep my eyes shut while shuffling and dealing, because if I look, I can see a little bit at the top of the card and it might be black or it might be orange. Ultimately, not a big deal, and it's fixed on the simulator, but it is just one of those things. The more important thing you'll have is either it would be like this with nothing on it extra, or like exampled here, you'll have a particular monster referenced. Essentially, at the start of the campaign, if you decide to use seed patterns as one of your pillars, they cost I think 1 pillar point, which it seems reasonable. They're not complicated to operate, but they can be complicated to remember and keep an eye on all of the unlocks and what you're looking to craft. But you will also add all of the patterns that match that particular monster, and they'll all go in, and they will use resources from that specific monster. Middle part here, this is all flavor. We got the shape of the thing we're crafting. We've got a little bit of text. Now, the only thing that really matters is the color of these icons, which are the same as down here. Blue means it requires something, like a particular thing to be in the settlement. Grey means it's just pure flavor, and purple indicates that there's going to be some kind of consequence of what your crafting is. It might be good, it might be bad. I think it's a really neat system, very tidy, and just good to use color to show this. The actual shapes of them all, currently that's just kind of flavor, which I like as well. This bit here, this is the key thing that we care about. The top bit is the stuff that we'll expend in this. There'll either be like named specific things, such as here we've got 2 gear cards, so we're combining a round leather shield with a founding stone. But it can also be, to show you like here, it can be specific resources. Now, whenever it's like this, where it says hide, that means it can be any hide as long as it's from a monster. And there's an additional wrinkle to that up here in the top right corner. In this, frankly, it's always been a little bit too small, but this tells you the era of the particular card that relates to nodes. So in order to craft this rawhide bandana, we need a rawhide headband and an endeavour, and we also need a hide from a monster that is either node 1 or higher. So the further up we go with the eras here, the more expensive the crafting cost is, because you're using higher quality stuff. And it's always more expensive than normal because you don't get to use your basic resources at all unless they're specifically named in the recipe. We'll see some of those, but like skull, broken lantern, perfect organ, perfect bone, things like that. Those are used from the basic resource deck, but we can't just use a hide, a monster hide, because it isn't monster hide. This is just any hide from the yellow-backed monster resources. And then all the other stuff down on the bottom here is additional things that you need in the settlement, like the Eldest Aegis here needs paint, and you have to protect the young settlement. Rawhide headband, you need to survive with at least 2 hunt XP, and you need Symposium innovated on top of the other bits and pieces. It's a fairly neat system. I will say the major issue I have with it is some of the requirements that are needed are really like, there's something that you wouldn't know to take a note of. Like, it's easy to tell if a survivor is blind in one eye or has a dismembered limb. That's like kind of stuff you naturally record. But some of them are asking for things like being traumatized by a particular monster, or having done this small specific thing at some time in the past, and they're not things we normally track, so it does add a bit of overhead. I've ended up recording all of those, and effectively each survivor has a little checklist of have they done this, have they done this. It's easier to keep a track of who's fought what, but it's some extra overhead on top of just needing to remember that the particular seed patterns exist. And hopefully, like me going through these will help you focus in on a few and decide, I want this for this particular thing, etc. Now, the way that we gain these patterns, as mentioned before, is through insight. So 3 understanding triggers the gain of patterns. The very first time this happens, we get to trigger the story event. So that is where we're going to zip our way over to now. I still don't have bookmarks. It's a shame, but here it is. This is Designs and Dandelions, and this will happen first survivor to reach 3 understanding or higher, and they'll be hit by this inspiration. I'm still not entirely 100% clear on why dandelions are chosen. Dandelion obviously comes from the name lion's tooth, which is by the shape of the leaves of a dandelion. And dandelions themselves are they have a lot of medicinal herbal sort of properties, and they're very nutritious in many ways. And the only reason we sort of a bit annoyed about them is they kind of became a pest once we started having manicured lawns, like proper lawns. Beyond that, they're actually quite a useful plant. Now, it's possible that the concept of dandelions is because of the way these are seed patterns, and the individual who seems to be behind this sort of whole system is the Cyclops Knight. Now, what I mean by that is generally survivors tend not to be able to come up with ideas by themselves. The ideas come from an external force, a monster within the world. This is why innovation is always printed on the core location, and that location has a monster in it. A very good example of this is if you have People of the Sun, you get two cards. You get the Sacred Pool, settlement location cards, and you get the Sun. And if you look at them, you'll see that the Sun has the innovation on it. The pool doesn't. I mean, the pool's got some little eggs in it at the start of the campaign, but it's not. It isn't providing information, and you'll see the same when we look at the gambler's chest with the Dreamkeeper. It's the Dreamkeeper who has that innovate. Same with the Lantern Horde and the Tyrant. So the Cyclops Knight, which we can see here, sort of this dandelion eye shape, single shape, seems to be the one who's behind this. And I think it's kind of the concept is these ideas, these sparks of innovation for making things are floating around within the world, and they kind of strike survivors when they have that moment of insight and get picked up. We can sort of see a little bit of that here. And I think that's part of it. I don't know if there's significance to dandelions being lion's teeth. It could be. Lions tend to be quite important to the world of Kingdom Death. But anyway, they have this spark, and that gives you the drafting table innovation right here. And then you roll on this table. Classic story event table, 1 to 3. You lose a courage and suffer an intracranial hemorrhage. Not the worst, because you can always deal with that with the Barber Surgeon. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you get a seed pattern as a part of the unlock, and a 9 or 10, you get 2 seed patterns, and you get the Mark of the Cyclops Knight ability. So that's why I mentioned the Cyclops Knight pretty clearly here. When you craft a seed pattern, that survivor will gain +1 strength and +1 hunt XP, and at 10 plus hunt XP, they leave the settlement. Not like the most super useful ability, but it is a bunch of extra strength that you could achieve. And, there are some survivors who can kind of sidestep gaining hunt XP. So occasionally, sometimes you might just be able to keep them around forever. But I think thematically, I really like these things where a character does a certain amount of stuff and then reaches a point where they're like, my destiny is not in this settlement anymore, and they head out into the world. So yeah. As for the Cyclops Knight itself, I have the resin miniature. It's a cool little sculpt. We don't really know too much about the Cyclops Knight. It's not a monster you fight against. It appears in the Dark Blacksmith hunt event, and at least I believe that's the Cyclops Knight there. And it has bits of lore and here, there, and everywhere. For the most part, it currently seems to be occupying the same sort of trope space as the Skull Knight in Berserk, as in, sure, it's got its own agenda, but it doesn't appear to be as hostile towards survivors as some of the other monsters are. So, now we have our drafting table. Let's close this. There we go. So, the drafting table is the innovation that we get from this system. It is the bit that provides the 3 understanding to gain a seed pattern card, which it generally will be the predominant way that you're going to be doing this. But also, you can spend innovations here to try and generate more seed patterns. 1 to 3, creative slump, nothing happens. 4 to 7, you have a vision, you get +1 understanding once per lifetime, which can help you get to that seed pattern trigger. And on a 8+, you look within, you see a single large eye, you gain 1 seed pattern card, but skip the next hunt to recover from a migraine. This innovation is kind of just like a endeavor sync. If you don't have anything else to do with your endeavors and your population is at a healthy 20+, yep, I'm going to keep saying 20. 20 is the minimum I think you should be having your populations at. That's a reasonable number, a goal to go for. But yeah, you can just sink some in here to try and generate extra seed patterns. Just pick survivors you're not planning to go on a hunt with and that haven't had the vision already. Overall though, it's not hard to draw a lot of seed patterns because you can get your access to survivors who are basically born with either 2 or 3 understanding. Graves gives you +1 understanding, Saga gives you +2. Now I will say under Arc Survivors I don't really take Graves anymore. I prefer to take Cannibales because Marrowism survivors are my jam. They're one of my favourite Arc Survivor types. But even having like being born with 2 understanding means this 4 to 7 can trigger for you and get that seed pattern that way. So very easy to generate a lot of seed patterns basically by improving your population and naturally playing the game. You can fairly reliably drain out the entire deck, so you shouldn't ever be cut out from anything. The main difficulty is the order, because that's randomized. If you drop out a king weapon super early, you know, that's no good. That's no good at all. It's just not going to do anything. Likewise, if you get something early game really late, it's no help either. So there's a lot of randomness here, and our only way of kind of controlling that is generating as many draws from the seed deck as possible, from the seed pattern deck. Okay, that's all of that. Honestly, I think it's a neat system. I would have liked it to have a bit more of tiering. So the later, you always have your basic seed deck of all the generic seed patterns, and then as the monsters are unlocked, the new cards get put in. I think that would have been quite sort of smooth. As a part of introducing a node 2 monster, you now add its seed patterns in, and so on and so forth. That would have at least alleviated the problem of getting a seed pattern really early, but on the whole it should pay out quite nicely, and it's absolutely fine. So if we pull out here, this is everything. I'm going to try and be somewhat pacey going through all of this, because there's a lot of individual items. Seed patterns have a massive amount of differences, so I might just brush over some fairly briefly. We will see, but it's a lot of text, and I do prefer to read out the text because I can't just, it's not like when I write stuff and I can quickly write out the words in a few seconds and that's fine. No, I have to read them out, and you have to deal with the fact that my reading out loud gets interrupted a bit because my thought process is verbal as well. So, Right, well, layout, we've got our Era 1 seed patterns across here, with generic on the left, monsters on the right. Era 2, generic left, monster specific on the right. And then Era 3 is all monster stuff, as is Era 4. And you can kind of see we've got a little bit of a pyramid going on. That's what we want to see from design. Also over here, we've got the 3 hybrid armor sets that come from this. Hybrid armor sets first appeared in the Lion Knight expansion, and they were a big hit for good reason. They're super cool, so I'll dive into those a little bit because there's some interesting stuff going on with these as well. Okay, so now we'll zoom in a bit. Let's just have it about like there. There's our backdrop, and we'll start with the Hypersight visor, which, if I remember correctly, is like somebody suggested something as a little bit of a fun joke during the Kickstarter campaign, and it was like a reference to the Scouter from Dragon Ball Z. Excuse me, I don't watch Dragon Ball Z, but that's my understanding. And it ended up being made into a card, this is one of the things I like, is when the community is involved in some small way and they get a little thing, a little nod or a tribute or a card that like, hey, I was involved in that in some small way. I think it's really a nice way of commemorating fun moments and bringing the community together. So the Hypersight visor, Costs a perfect organ, a broken lantern, and a hide. You need to have White Speaker's Story of the Young Hero. That's easy to track because it triggers an ability. A bold survivor, and then that bold survivor is going to suffer blind twice, effectively retiring them because it's quite difficult to replace eyes in the game. Not impossible, but difficult. And when we get to the gear card itself, you can see here why this is a negative fun one, because this is quite a high-tech looking piece of gear. Hypersight visor, so it's an item, it's an other, so keep those saviors away from this. It has a fairly clean little ability. During the hunt and showdown, play with the top cards of all resource decks revealed. Once per lantern year, you may shuffle all of them, and it's got a downward facing blue affinity. This is nice. That extra information can be really helpful, and effectively you get to make a decision of whether, hey, do we want these to be the first resource cards we're drawing from these decks or not? And that I think is interesting. It's not super strong. It becomes weaker the further into campaign you get, because once you have more resources behind you, you tend to not need to grab everything, you know. What I mean is, like a cat eye, like, you know, from the White Lion is quite valuable early on, but as you get later into a campaign, you should have drawn so many White Lion resources that you don't need that so much. Which it fits very well for being an Era 1 item. It's not essential. It will fall off. I personally don't use this too much. I think the mechanics are great, but I prefer to not have the negative pattern cards in my campaign, because I find for the most part that they don't fit the narrative for me, and I like thematics and narrative and that kind of stuff more than anything else. Next up we have the Rawhide Bandana as our very first 001. This costs an Endeavour, a Rawhide headband, and a hide. You also have to survive with 2+ Hunt XP and Symposium Innovated. Now, also, I think there's some fun, almost fourth wall teasing with this, because we've got this whole concept of we're removing a Rawhide headband from the game, and we're getting this alternative piece of gear. So there's challenge traditions and propose new methods. The Elder's Chastisement transform the Elder's Chastisement into creative energy. Cut an old headband in a show of defiance. This almost feels a bit like a slight pushback against how much the community uses the Rawhide headband. Hey, you made it, not us, and just give us other options that do AI scouting and control, and we'll stop using it. Also, you can see down here, searches for solution for their hair loss and being mocked for it. I think bandanas are perfectly fine for people with receding hairlines if they want to cover that up. I think male pattern baldness is just a thing that happens, and I people are ashamed of losing their hair. They shouldn't be. It's just, you've got no control over it. You've inherited it from your mother's father. C'est la vie. So it is fun. It's fun that it's talking a bit of a narrative, and it's pushing a little bit against the back against the community, and and so on. It's neat. Rawhide Bandana itself is still a part of the Rawhide set, because you see it has set and Rawhide, and it has outfit. It provides 1 armor point to the head. It still has the down-facing blue affinity, but the new ability on it is, while insane, you may spend 1 survival to turn a monster reaction into a reaction failure before you make a wound attempt. I like the idea that's behind this, which is sort of, hey, let's make this a bit more aggressive in its slanting. But when you're dealing with best in class, one of the strongest pieces of headgear in the entire game, and you're turning it into this, you're honestly taking a downgrade. I could see arguments for your second Rawhide headband to be turned into a Rawhide bandana, but part of the reason bandanas are used so much is because sorry, part of the reason that the headband is used so much is because it's such a unique ability that we do not have access to others on. And also Rawhide set bonus is incredibly good, so just having a survivor chilling with a bow, or perhaps even not even attacking and providing pure support, works so well in Rawhide because we can use position and distance to protect our survivors. Ultimately, that means I'm not making this unless it's on a second Rawhide set, and even then, Rawhide is an inherently support and survival based set rather than an aggressive attacking set, and this is asking for you to be far more aggressive. And you're not even it's not even synergizing well with the set bonus, you know. Actually, I should grab the card for that. 1 second. Yeah, here we are. You can see you only get the survival back when performing a survival action, and this is not a survival action, so you're not even leaning into one of the strengths of Rawhide for this, which is a shame. It just doesn't work too well. I haven't seen too many people use this. I've more than once heard people saying, I'm just not going to craft this, why would I downgrade the headband? And I get that. I think it could have been better if Rawhide armor was just more generic. If it was just like an armor set of protection with 2s across the board and a little bit of survival gains, and didn't have the headband attached, we'd probably be in a different world. But as it stands, I don't really care about this. I don't really want it. It's interesting, but it's too expensive for everything it's doing. Next up, we got the Elder's Aegis, which we've seen a lot of before. Founding Stone, round leather shield, also requires paint, and you have to have Protect the Young. And you get this weapon, which is a shield. It's not super early because obviously you need the round leather shield to make it in the first place, but it is a very impressive piece of kit. So it's Seed Weapon, Melee, Shield, Stone, in case Stone becomes a relevant keyword in the future. It's got an up-facing green and a right-facing green. We're pretty happy to see those. They're pretty solid. And if we connect both of those, we get this ability of when you depart over the most hunt XP, you add 1 armor point to all locations for every 4 XP you have more than the youngest. So this rewards players who take out like an experienced tank and then bring along a newbie each time, and the Elder can really defend very well. But even if you are not doing that too much, Deflect 1 is very strong in the period of the game where we're getting this. And even the stat profile it's okay for shield attacking. It's not great, but 2 strength is better than the 1 strength you had previously. The main thing that limits me from using this is it requires Protect the Young. And if I'm using Ark Survivors, I'm not picking Protect the Young. I'm picking Survival of the Fittest. I love Survival of the Fittest. And it synergizes really well with other things. So this is kind of a little hard to justify sometimes, but at least it's not tied to Graves, which is kind of become a dead affinity, a dead principle for me when I'm playing with Ark Survivors, or Barbarian Barbarism. Barbaric, which is just straight up. I just don't take it out of the box these days because it's so much less interesting than Romantic is in both Ark and non-Arks. So Protect the Young, negative. If you've managed to drop this out before you've picked your birth principle, it's a good argument to maybe consider going Protect the Young. But generally, the stat gains and the reroll on Survival of the Fittest make it hard to justify this. Tithe Box. Okay, bone, broken lantern, and a hide. And you need a survivor whose ear was cut off while bloodletting, so the bloodletting innovation. And then you make this. So it is a stinky heavy other item. Stinky is a relevant keyword these days, and heavy is always relevant. It reduces your movement by 1. And then when a seed weapon, so that's any of these weapons in this whole thing, deal the killing blow, you collect the monster's ear in this box. So you'll make a note of how many ears on your settlement sheet. While there are 3+ ears inside, gain +2 accuracy, +2 strength, and +2 evasion. So this gives you a little mini quest to do, and also supports seed weapons. That's a really good set of stat bonuses. You do not sniff at getting +2 strength accuracy and evasion, especially the accuracy and evasion, which tend to be limited sources you can get them from. So this is really a cracking little design, and I like it. I like how it's giving you this quest, and slowing down a fight to deliver killing blows with a specific seed weapon is never particularly tough, because the seed weapons tend to be very good anyway. So I think it's a bit macabre, but it's very, very cool. Okay, next up we have the Masamune, excuse my pronunciation. This requires 4 iron and 1 perfect hide. You need a survivor with 2+ accuracy who has inexplicably survived, and you need the blacksmith, and you need a survivor with a dismembered arm. So this is one of those things where it's like, tracking inexplicably surviving is a little bit tough, and that's why you kind of need this little check sheet of things to be able to note. Did I inexplicably survive? Great, yeah, then if we ever get 2+ accuracy on me, boom, 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 we can make this. I think it's very cool that you cut the survivor with a dismembered arm and basically they regrow their arm, which is really interesting and cool. The weapon itself follows the usual design of katanas, so its stat profile is pretty much all the same. 7, 7 plus 7. It is a katana with metal and other. Once again, like all katanas, it fails to have the sword keyword, which it really should. Don't at me in the comments, but yeah, that's my opinion. All katanas are swords, but not all swords are katanas. It has Deadly 2 and Deflect 2, but it has a very high cost in that you have to remove 2 of your bleeding tokens to activate this weapon. That usually requires a few different kind of tricks. Story of the Young Hero is the classic, because you can bleed yourself to gain survival. Crimson Crocodile Armor provides a little bit of bleed to start with. Essentially, you're just kind of keeping an eye out for ways of generating bleeding, because you don't want to be relying on the monster hitting you with bleed. Although some monsters, like the Butcher, do a lot of natural bleed, so you can take advantage there. This is obviously a very powerful weapon. It's expensive, like 4 iron and a perfect hide is not a cheap cost. It's got a beastly attack profile that is always relevant, because even when its strength falls off, it's still got Deadly 2 and Deflect 2. I think this is just a phenomenal weapon, even with katana specialization and mastery being a little bit overall in the game's tier list of weapons. Then we've got the Backstabbing Stone. Requires a Endeavour and a Foundation and a Founding Stone. You need a Survivor with a Disorder, and you need any piece of heavy gear. Super cheap to make, very easy to create early on, and here is the weapon itself. So this is kind of like a flipped around Founding Stone. It's been orientated the other way. I've always liked that the Founding Stone design has 2 faces in it if you look at the original art, and this is depicting like a sort of different kind of Founding Stone. Got 2 speed, 6+ accuracy, 1 strength. It has the stone keyword. It loses its original throw ability, and instead you can spend an activation to stab an adjacent survivor. They gain 3 bleeding tokens, a -1 movement token, the priority target token, and they're knocked down. Kind of difficult to really make a lot of use of this. Luckily it's next to the Masamune, which shows one sort of way you could possibly make use of this. Negative movement token though, eventually those become a serious problem, but having the priority target token can kind of cancel that out. So generally the Backstabbing Stone isn't very good unless you've got specific plans around bleeding tokens. It can be very good to just backstab a Crimson Crocodile or a Crimson Armor survivor, which will put them up to 5 bleed. They can then, once they're up, they can activate their set bonus and get a ton of additional armor points, and then it can just be bandaged off them. So it takes a little bit of setup, but you can get a lot of payoff from that kind of thing. So I think it's interesting, this, even if quite often you're going to look at it and be like, I'd rather keep my normal Founding Stones. I think that's an interesting space for design. It is nice to have stuff that is like a side grade or a situationally good thing rather than always powerful. Now we've got the Yarn Gripper. So this requires 5 iron, 2 perfect bone, and 1 endeavour, and you have to have acid rain falling in the year that you craft this. You will inflict a ruptured muscle on 2 survivors, and you need a thundermaul. Now this makes this very hard to make, although it is worth noting that if you have been tracking your failed settlement milestones, acid rain is a regular occurrence 3 times in the timeline. I have, my settlements are at like max lost settlements, and so I always have acid rain in a certain number of years. The thundermaul is the bit that tends to be a little bit harder to get to happen, and you need Yarn Reaper to be there, and you need 2 perfect bone, and you need 5 iron. So this is kind of like one of those perfect storm situations to be able to craft it. What we get is this beautiful little accessory. Now, it does have a small typo, well, the wrong icon, but it's a seed item metal other, and it provides 4 armor to the arms, not the head. Unless, you know, your survivor is going to wear this as a hat, which will probably be quite fetching, but, you know. It provides, it's an accessory, so it can be on in addition to an armor set. It provides +5 strength, which is a huge bonus, and if you get its left red, right blue, and down green affinities all connected, you cannot suffer the disarm or dismembered arm severe injury. Nice bonus. You don't care too much about that because all these extra armor points on your arms, or head if you're a weirdo, they prevent you getting to severe injury in the first place. But not suffering dismembered arms is pretty great. I'm very happy to put this on a survivor who's using 2-handed weapons in particular. It's fantastic with spears, because spears, not necessarily the highest strength, but they have a very, very good attack profile and very good weapon proficiency. So, love that. Master Bone Dagger. You need a bone dagger, a perfect bone, a perfect organ, and a skull. So this is a actual, you know, basic resource skull. And a dagger specialist with 5+ ranks plays a game with the blade in their fingers and does the whole bishop from Alien thing of going incredibly fast. That results in this weapon, which is a weapon melee dagger finesse bone other. So bone keyword, finesse keyword, they're good. It has 3+ speed, 6+ accuracy, 2 strength, and a left and right affinity. It also has the razor sharp dice, which is like sharp but way better. We'll look at razor sharp a little bit down the line. It's sitting next to the mighty bone axe and the lucky cat fang. But before that, we have persistence. So this is actually printed on the normal bone dagger. It's basically on a perfect hit you gain the survival on the number. So it's doing what the normal bone dagger does, but better. And it also has impeccable, which is reroll natural ones on wound attempts, and you have to keep the new roll result. This is a very good weapon, like in the mid game, which is around where you'll get it unlocked. Daggers have come a long way from their original design. I like this in particular because it's sort of using up the it gives you a reason to have crafted that bone dagger early on, because you could repurpose it into this and carry this weapon for quite a while longer. So phenomenally good, and doing a lot of what you'd like daggers to be doing. Onto, I think maybe one of the best Era 1 generic seed patterns. This is the Mighty Bone Axe. We need a bone axe, a bone, and an organ, and we need a bold survivor, different to the bold survivor we needed earlier for the headband. And all departed survivors are going to gain a bleeding token, which isn't necessarily a negative, as we've seen with other things that like to use bleed, but it is something to bear in mind. And the weapon we get is this. So it's a weapon melee axe bone, 2 speed, 5+ accuracy, 6 strength, up facing red, left facing red. It's got savage, so that is a additional wound on its first critical wound roll, and it has heroic, which is for your attack roll you can reroll any natural ones. You have to keep the new roll result, so you're very unlikely to roll a 1 for your attack rolls. This is such an incredibly good attack profile. And axes are a very solid weapon and a good weapon type. So this is just really good. My most recent campaign was, I got this fairly early on, along with the easy to get bone and organ, and effectively for 2 bone and 2 organs, so 4 resources total. I just had one survivor sorted for many lantern years, rocking just a really good weapon. I'm honestly a little surprised that this doesn't use a perfect bone in its crafting recipe, because it's obscenely good. I mean, yeah, make this. If you get it early, make it, and it will carry you for a long way. Okay, monster specific ones. Lucky Cat Fang Knife. This is our White Lion Seed pattern. We need Cat Fang Knife, so that's the level 3 White Lion. Broken Lantern, Lucky Charm, and a Sword Beetle. So if you do have the White Lion in the campaign, remember to hold on to a Sword Beetle. Luckily, you don't really want to use them outside of recipes, so it's not too hard to hold on to them. The Most Insane Survivor, so anyone who's the most insane is then gains Secretive, basically. And so it's not particularly high cost. And you get a weapon that justifies hunting that level 3 White Lion. The Lucky Cat Fang Knife is Seed Weapon, Melee, Dagger, Bone, Metal. So bone and metal, decent keywords, bone in particular. 3 speed, 6+ accuracy, 4 strength, and if you have all 4 of these blue puzzle affinities, as this is a T-junction core gear, you put it in slot 5 in the middle, you get Deadly 3. And this has Razor Sharp as well, which is all just incredible. Really good weapon. Like, Razor Sharp dice is so very good. Let's just take a little look at it here. This is it. If we zoom in, yeah. So unfortunately I can't change the size very easily, but the number of pips is what matters. And if I just give it a little roll, there we are. See a different side. These symbols are part of the runic alphabet. That here we go, boom boom. And they indicate basically this says the number that's been rolled. Where's the dice gone? There it is. Yeah, there we are. See, so that's the symbol for 6. This runic alphabet is present in bits of the gambler's chest. It's a straight substitution cipher, so each rune just relates to a specific letter or number. I really like that. That's about the level of complexity I want in my language, in my codes. I'm not interested in stuff that's more complicated than that. I'd play code cracking games if that's what I was looking for. So I love this dice. It is really fun. It manages to be a bit kind of weird and unusual without being too complicated. Just count the pips. Sweet. It's also used by the Fingernail Whip, which is our Crimson Crocodile Seed weapon. Groomed nail, hide, veined glass. You need a survivor who has fought the Crimson Crocodile. You need paint, and you need the Crimson Crockery. This is all fairly easy to put together, because you've got a survivor who's fought the Crimson Crocodile unless you've wiped against it repeatedly. So, if you wiped against it repeatedly, you don't have these resources in the first place. I think the most expensive part of this is the veined glass, which is used for the giggling scythe, but I think the groomed nail, I'm trying to remember if I think that's actually right. And I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look up what it's used for. Yep, it's used for the skull lantern, the crimson skull lantern. I just looked at it. It's used for the blood compass lantern, which is I think one of my favourite gear cards. Even though I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but I did remember in the back of my head that the groomed nail was used for it. So actually, I'm going to revise my statement and say this is a little bit expensive as far as things go, because I do really like the blood compass lantern, and I usually like to have 2 of them if I can manage it. But this is a whip made of fingernails. So Seed Weapon, Melee, Whip, Bone, Other. It's got the Heroic, so let's just get that out. So Heroic is during an attack roll with the weapons, reroll any natural ones, same as the Mighty Bone Axe, which I could have remembered if I hadn't had to look other stuff up in between. It's also got, if you have the left red puzzle and a blue affinity anywhere, It gains razor sharp against super dense hit locations, and it has 2 speed, 5 plus accuracy, and 4 strength. Plus a right facing bloom. Whips are a genuinely very good weapon type. For a long time struggled because it just didn't have a lot of good options. It's always worth noting that if I just grab it from the box, Whip Mastery, the mastery here gives you +5 strength when attacking with a whip. So even a whip like this that is only 4 strength some of the time is quite potentially powerful once it's up at 9 strength in the hands of a whip master. Also, the Crimson Crocodile itself has a lot of super dense locations at level 2 or higher, so situationally this weapon can be very, very good. It's not as powerful as many of the other seed weapons because its baseline stats against non-super dense locations are not super impressive, but it is pretty cool. It's just, I think it might be what I put my third set of groomed nails into, which is it's just a shame that it is actually sharing 2 very desirable resources that I usually have other plans for. Now we've got our Kingsman card. Aren't we all excited? It requires a Lantern Halberd and an Endeavour. You need to have a faith innovated, so that's fairly straightforward, and you need to survive the King's Curse, which is going to happen as long as you've beaten a king with a survived in the final blow, and just keep them around. The weapon you get is actually, like, the true Lantern Halberd is kind of really impressive. So it's a seed weapon, melee, spear, two-handed, finesse, lantern, other. Interestingly, it isn't an axe despite being a halberd, which is a point against it. It has a attack profile of 2 speed, 4 plus accuracy, and 14 strength. It also has razor sharp, increasing its strength even further. Reach 2, it is irreplaceable, fair enough. You are hushed, and after attacking, if standing, you move up to 2 spaces. And it has a down-facing red affinity, which makes sense because it's a halberd. Although an up-facing red affinity might have been a little bit more thematic, given that the red lantern is at the top of the spear. That's just splitting hairs, really. Solid weapon. Actually, whoop. Okay, hang on, the dog's going off. Okay, right. I wasn't sure what set her off there, but hopefully she's calmed down now. She takes her job of protecting the house and warning about anything very seriously. Yeah. Anyway, True Lantern Halberd, as I was saying, I think this is one of the few real big positives about having the Kingsman as a part of your Nemesis monsters. Kingsman is still my least favourite Node 2 monster, but I do think this weapon is very, very cool if you do manage to get it. It is also possible for it to turn up because the Guide Light, I think it's called, is a terrain card. Hang on, let's see. Guidepost? No, that's the innovation. Give me a second. Here it is. The glowing waypoint can result in you getting the Lantern Halberd if you have a good amount of strength. And this is a guaranteed part of the King Showdown, and the stat profile on the true Lantern Halberd is good enough for that portion of the game, in my opinion. So there are other ways you can get this, but the Kingsman does have to be a part of the campaign. Otherwise, you're just not adding this seed pattern in the first place. And it isn't guaranteed the Kingsman will be in there. If you play the Dreamkeeper, you're flat out not allowed to have the Kingsman in as your Node 2 Nemesis monster by the rules of that particular campaign. So it sort of, it depends really. There is certainly an interesting thematic experience for having the Kingsman and the King all together within the same campaign, which I just don't know if I'd do that. I talk about this, I think it's really good, but again, I'm like, I kind of don't really want to have it in my deck because it means that the Kingsman's turning up, and that means that I don't get to play with the Red Witches or the Lion Knight. So yeah, good thing, but still tied to a monster I'm not super fond of fighting. Dreamkeeper knife. This is gambler specific, which means it is people of the Dreamkeeper specific. It requires a bone, a perfect bone, an organ, and insight. A survival with insight. And it is a seed weapon melee dagger bone other. 3 speed, 5 plus accuracy, 3 strength. Left and right facing blue affinities, which makes it very easy to connect to the lucky charm. You want to do that because it has savage, and when you critically wound the monster, it gains a -1 luck token, limit once per showdown, or LOPS as I tend to abbreviate that. Just solid dagger, solid dagger, great to get in the early game, and has a fairly potent ability. And if you can leverage a high deadly sort of luck kind of slant to this, it doesn't have deadly itself, but if you have ways of increasing your luck significantly, you could end up rocking this knife for a long time, because deadly just has basically infinite scaling as long as a monster can be critically wounded. Deadly and luck are always viable in the same sort of ratio. Okay, Era 2, we got to start with the Nico Twilight Armour. 2 iron, 2 hide, 1 organ. You need pictographs innovated. You need a Twilight Sword, and you need the Hooded Knight. So really this is very difficult to put together outside of People of the Lantern. It's not impossible. There is one of the hunt events that can get Twilight Sword with the Hooded Knight into your settlement, so it's not utterly impossible. But generally, if you're not playing People of the Lantern, you should probably just leave this out because it's quite awkward to do otherwise. But maybe you keep it in and try and gamble for that tiny sliver of a percentage chance. Itself, though, is like, even though this is a like promotional negative pattern, I think this is one of the most interesting seed cards in the entire deck. The Neko Twilight Armour is seed armour metal other. It makes sense given what it's constructed of. It's got the ability full ensemble and +1 evasion. So full ensemble is designed for this piece of gear in particular. It's a special rule. This armor gear is worn at every hit location. You may not equip armor gear at any hit location while wearing a full ensemble. So this is 5 pieces of armor, which provide 2 armor points to each hit location, as per the description, without a set bonus, that sits in 1 gear slot, which is just incredibly good. This is a really impressive piece of gear, because one of the biggest pressures we have in this game is gear slots. We've got 9 of them, maybe 10 if we've got Gormandism. That's not a lot. Suddenly this is giving us protection while freeing up another 4 slots. On top of that, it gives you the ability to pounce, and you move 6 instead of 3 when you pounce. And if you have a cumbersome weapon like the Twilight Sword or a bone club, you double the strength. Like, this is a really impressive piece of kit around the time you'll get it, which is, it can be like early mid game where you have this together, and you know, it doesn't have a lot of armor points, but you've got a lot of extra slots to make up for that in one way or another. I really think this is just an incredibly good piece of kit. And I'd love to see more things like this that are compressing down the armor slots, even if it's basically just a fairly lightish bodysuit. It's a really sweet piece of kit. Speaking of, Cyclops Ledger. So this requires a Cyclops fly, 1 leather and 2 broken armor. You need records innovated, you need a bug trap, and you need that Cyclops fly, so a little expensive. All of that gets put together and becomes the Cyclops Ledger. This is an item with the other keyword facing left green, green affinity, left facing green affinity. That's how we say it, left facing green affinity. The schematics help you maintain your gear. On arrival, you can change 1 instance of sharp to razor sharp, or increase deadly by 1 until the end of the showdown. Both of these are amazing. This is such a good piece of gear. I will always be trying to craft this. It's nice to have a reason to make a bug trap as well, because bug traps are they're unpredictable and they might just do nothing at all, but getting the Cyclops Ledger, yes please. I'll pay that. I'll pay that price. So super, super cool. Not much more to say except it's effectively making one of your damage dealers more dangerous, and that is good. Speaking of, these next 3 gear cards are all roughly around the same design. They are crossroads affinities, so core pieces that will go in your middle slot and provide 4 affinities of a particular colour in all directions. The first one we have is the Item Smith's lens. This requires an organ, a broken lantern, a survivor with analyze, a barber surgeon, and then that survivor will suffer blind. And you get this head accessory. Seed item metal other. Accessory to the head, 1 extra armor to the head, -1 accuracy. Because you've got a ton of lenses that really aren't ideal for fighting with. But if you have all 4 blue affinities connected, then you can activate the Grace of Splendor by spending a movement and an activation. You gain +1 luck until the end of the round for every 2 affinities that you have. So you need, really at this point, to be rocking Surge if you're going to be able to do this. Wow, though, like, this can be a lot of luck. You can build exceptionally blue gear grids if you need to. You can effectively ensure that monsters are wounded, critically wounded on a 2+ with this. I think it's a very sweet, powerful item that just scales throughout the entire game if you build around it. So what's more to say? It's good. Speaking of, Armorsmith Tongs, 3 broken lanterns, an organ. You need leather making, you need heat, you need a perfect organ, but it's not consumed through the use of this. And you get the Armorsmith's Tongs, seed item metal other keywords, all green affinities in all directions. When you depart, you get the Grace of Valor, which will give you +1 armor point for every 2 green affinities you have. Heavy green affinity builds are already very strong. This is supporting them. And if you have all 4 green affinities connected to this, so all 4 green puzzles, then again for that full activation, Knight, Lightning Bolt, you reduce damage from hits by 1 to a minimum of 1 this showdown. I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but this isn't limited to once per showdown, and the current wording of it is a little loose, and I've never been clear if you could just activate this again and it would stack further. I've not really bothered doing that. I've not really checked and to find out if that's the case or not. I would hope not, but usually they limit these things by saying once per showdown, and that's not printed on here, so it's hard to say. If you can activate this multiple times, you should. You should stack it all to the point where the monster is just hitting you for like 1 damage per hit, flat out. Even if you're not able to activate this multiple times, there are other pieces of gear you can combine and stack on top of this to get additional damage preventation. Damage mitigation preventation is really strong. So this is like an amazing centerpiece build around again. Then we have the Weaponsmith's Hammer. This is 3 broken lanterns, a bone, a hide. You need Tinker on a survivor, and you need Scrap Smelting Innovated. And isn't it neat if we just, like, it's not consistently across all of them, but this one uses Analyze, this one uses Tinker. It's kind of a shame that this one doesn't also use the same sort of ability. But regardless, we get the Weaponsmith's Hammer. This is a weapon we can use. Seed weapon, melee, club, metal, other. It's got all 4 red affinities in each of the directions. It has 2 speed, 5+ accuracy, and 2 strength, but it has Grace of Power, which gives you +1 strength for every red affinity you have on the gear grid. So it's got a lot more strength than it looks like. It does have Cumbersome, generally a negative, but I mean, you know, you could wear a cat suit if you wanted to solve that problem. And its full activation, you know, its full use ability, Knight and Lightning Bolt, it's a weapon in your gear grid games, impeccable for this showdown. Impeccable gives you the reroll on natural ones for a wound attempt. So this is a very potent build around weapon. Often red affinity gear seems to kind of get left a bit behind when compared to blue and green. This is not one of those cases. This is a very impressive weapon that I'm happy to build around. It's nice. Hushin Harmonium. This is the Smog Singer's seed item. I talked about this in the Smog Singer's video. It needs a singing tongue, a broken lantern, vocal cords. You need a survivor who's fought the singers. You need drums, and then that survivor will end up deaf. You get the Ballad of Silence, access to it, and you get an instrument that does instrument stuff but isn't noisy, which is the most valuable part of this. I really like this item, this weapon, despite everything else. Like, it hasn't got a good attack profile, and Ballad of Silence is very expensive to activate. I don't care, I just like that I can use it in thermal rhythm and not have a noisy instrument. So that's where I like this. We'll just move on. It's good, but it's not amazing. Monster Trophy, this is our Screaming Antelope seed pattern. 1 pelt, 1 perfect organ, plus we need ammonia. We need to have killed a Screaming Antelope in the previous year, and then the survivor, one of the survivors who's from that showdown, will gain the Immortal Disorder. That's all good. We get this seed item for flammable, left facing green, right facing red. It increases your personal survival limit by the monster level, so that's the monster you're going to hunt. And if you have the red and the green puzzle affinities connected, all of your weapons gain persistence 1, which is on a perfect hit you gain +1 survival. This is just a big old survival generator for builds that are able to use it. It's perfectly fine. It's kind of mostly if the affinities are really useful for you that I find it's at its best. But it isn't bad at all, and especially it's a nice sort of piece of glue for perfect hit builds, because gaining that extra survival means you can surge, meaning you can keep attacking more and burn the monster down faster. So it's a nice supporter for perfect hits strategies in particular. And even if you're not connecting that up, sometimes it's just you might want that extra survival limit increased because you're at the cap and you've got lots of gained survival on departing. Who knows? Our other Gambler seed pattern, this is our Era 2 Gambler pattern, costs a hide, an organ, a broken lantern. You need face painting and you need a Dreamist. And you get this, which is a head accessory. It's got seed item cloth other, up facing blue. It's got 1 additional armor point to the head. It's an accessory, so you wear it in addition to your armor. When you depart, you gain a +1 luck token, and during the aftermath, you suffer -1 permanent luck. Not a great deal, not a great trade. I don't usually use this, but if you've got a revolving door of disposable survivors who are just coming in to do a job and then leave, you could have a red shirt luck-based build that they just wear this, and then when they come back to the settlement, you dump them into sacrifice or feed into a homicidalist or something. It's not like it's interesting, but I don't think it's something I want to use too often. Basically. You know, you're generally trying to abuse that, but taking advantage of it in some way. I mean, Gormanists can eat the luck token, so that way they can just sustain it. So that is an alternative way of making use of it. There is, you know, they consume the luck token during the showdown, and then that cancels out the -1 permanent luck afterwards. So you're essentially looking for ways of abusing this if you're going to use it. I wouldn't have it as a normal piece of kit in my loadout. It's very specialised. Okay, Era 3s. Plasma Cutter, Phoenix, Seed, negative pattern number, so optional for good reason when you look at it. You need 3 iron, a shimmering halo, 2 bone, and a perfect bone. A survivor has to have archived flammable gear on the showdown and the returning. You need scrap smelting, and then you make this piece of sci-fi. It's a seed weapon melee sword metal plasma. It's got an up facing red and a left facing red. Its attack profile is 3 speed, 6+ accuracy, and the absurd result of 21 strength with razor sharp. It has irreplaceable, so if the survivor holding it dies, you'll lose it, and it has sentience, so you need to be insane to be able to activate it. And if you get the up and left red puzzle affinities connected, then when you wound a hit location with a persistent injury, you critically wound instead. That's an axe mastery ability, if I remember correctly. The wording might be slightly different. Let's grab it. Yeah, so it's the axe mastery ability on a sword. What's to say? It's a 21 strength weapon with razor sharp, so it's way higher than actually 21 strength, and it's absurdly good. It's for fun, yeah. It's way better than this. This is the Vivid Bian Pao from one of the promo boxes I can't remember the name of right now. I've reviewed it before. It requires small feathers, perfect hide and organ, and you need heat and paint. And if you take it out, it's an item, flammable, noisy. And at the start of your act, you put a token on this, and then all the adjacent monster gains a flinch token. And then if there's 5+ tokens, you archive this, you suffer death and dismembered arm. And the only reason you might use this is, hey, you can archive it, and it's a flammable thing archived to give you the inspiration for making the plasma cutter. Or, you can get a dismembered arm nice and easy in order to craft your Masamune. Outside of that, this is a terrible piece of gear, and it is so expensive for what you get as well, that I think the only reason you're ever going to see me use it is for the express purpose of setting up being able to craft the plasma cutter without losing a piece of an armor set. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. I think it's a nice idea, but it's not very good in practice beyond specific uses such as the two I mentioned. Atnas's is the ornate rapier. This is a perfect bone, and an organ. You also need heat, and you need a sword specialist who has fought against Atnas, so another thing to track there. The weapon itself is interesting. It's a seed weapon melee sword, finesse metal other. Did I say metal twice? I meant melee metal. It has a 3/3+3 stat line, so surely it should be a katana with that stat line, but it's not. It's a fencing sword. It has razor sharp and frail, so really leaning into that fencing sword kind of jam. It's interesting. I was about to criticise it for being metal and not using iron, but bone is calcium and calcium is metal, so there's no criticism there that I could stand on properly. It's absolutely fine that it's a bone metal weapon and not bone. Anyway, so razor sharp, frail, precision 1 on a perfect hit, inflict an automatic critical wound on the first wound attempt of this attack. Very strong ability, one that I highly rate. I think automatic wounds are fantastic. I think this kind that forces you to draw the hit locations is the best kind because there's still some risk of you hitting the trap. That's my favourite. Ultimately, this is an Atnas-based weapon. It's okay. It's had its best, obviously, with Atnas and then stuff like Regalism, which likes using swords altogether. I think it's fine, but you really do want to be leaning towards that perfect hit. So I think it's Deadism, or has the Dark Eye knowledge that increases your perfect hit range. Let's test and see if my knowledge has worked there. Dark Eye. Grab this one. Let's see. Yes, there we are. This is the Timeless Eye variant for Ark Survivors. Yep, there we are. That's the kind of thing you'd like to have and being used with this, along with Regalism, which has sword synergies. So there are campaigns where it's good to be in. Basically, if you are going to have Atnas as your Node 2 Nemesis monster, you should probably be leaning into swords as a weapon type heavily, because Atlas is very strongly leveraged around swords, being, the Sword Saint himself. Shadow Cleaver. This is our Sunstalker pattern. It's kind of wild that this is in here, and it's also wild that there is 2 Sunstalker narrative miniatures and only one gets a card linked to them. The other one does have a character card, but also there's no Dragon King one. It just feels a bit weird, but I'm not going to complain beyond just being like it's weird, because I really love the Sunstalker. I love the Scleaver, and this is an upgrade to the Scleaver. It requires a Scleaver. That's a level 2 Sunstalker specific weapon. It needs a Shadow Ink Gland. That's expensive. A Stink Gland, not so much. And this is the really hard part. You have to have a suppressed shadow. That is a whole ordeal. Generally, I've achieved it most reliably these days by using Crimson Armor, because Crimson Armor increases your death threshold to 6 for bleeding tokens, and you need like 5 of them to get into Suppressed Shadow. So really hard to put this together, but if you do, you get the Shadow Cleaver, Seed, Weapon, Melee, Grand, Metal, Other, 2 speed, 5+ accuracy, 13 strength, and Razor Sharp, and Devastating 1. And on arrival, you put the Sundial and Light and Shadow Sunstalker trait cards into play, and when you're in darkness, you can spend your activation to place yourself in any other shadow that is not a monster shadow. So I think I was going to say I'm not going to look at it, but let's grab them very briefly so you can see how it works, because this is one of those really neat parts of the Sunstalkers kit that I think I haven't talked about like Sunstalkers yet in full. I haven't done the Dark Bestiary for that. But yeah, you get the Sundial, and that has this arrow direction that indicates what stuff is in shadow, so you'll have that showing where your shadows are. And then Light and Shadow creates the shadows themselves and gives you the mechanics for them. Normally they don't do anything specific outside of the Sunstalker Showdown, but you'll occasionally find pieces of gear that use these, and the Shadow Cleaver is one of the best that does use it. It's a great weapon turned into an incredible weapon, but it is hard work to make this. Light and Shadow is not an easy thing to achieve. Hang on, I think it's called Black Blood? Let's see. Yeah, I got it right. So see this? You have to get more than 5 bleeding tokens and not die. So even with Crimson Armor, I can't remember if Crimson Armor's your limit is 6 or 7, but I think your limit might be 6. But anyway, there are ways to get past this. It's easier to do it with fighting arts because more fighting arts cover this, but you have ways of inexplicably not dying, etc. It's tough. It's tough to trigger Black Blood because of that requirement to be more than 5. So you need at least 6 with the wording there, and then you have to get through Conquer Your Shadow. Very cool when it happens though. Oh wow, how did that happen? Okay. And suitably strong. Then we got the Reaper Jaw. I talked about this in the Scout outskirts in you. So 1 bone, 1 Grimjaw, 2 iron. It has an extra special combo with having an additional Grimjaw. You need a scrap smelting. You need a perfect organ, which you don't have to lose, and you need a bone club. Again, that's not part of the crafting cost. You get this dagger, 3 speed, 7+ accuracy, 8 strength. Can only be used by scouts. It generates extra resources if it wounded the monster at least once, and with Grimjaw and some other things it can get, and affinities connected, it can get Razor Sharp and Barb 6. I'm not going through it again in details here, just it's an option. If you want more details on my thoughts about this and how it works and everything, you can watch the section in the outskirts video. Clasping Shield. This is one of 2 Black Knight specific pieces of gear. It costs 1 iron and 2 scrap. You also need an Insane Survivor with Tumble. You need Sculpture Innovated, and you need a Blacksmith. And it provides this weapon, which is a shield, of course, with finesse as well. It's got up facing red and left facing red, 1 speed, 7+ accuracy, 5 strength, and block 2. But the big thing about this is if you look at the design of the shield, you can see it's kind of inverted. And it's effectively a catching shield. So if another survivor would collide with you due to knockback, they end their knockback and you place them standing in the nearest unoccupied space to you. Part of the Black Knight's gimmicks is the Black Knight will smack survivors around and try and bounce them off these rubber statues and into the void beyond the edges of the board, forcing them to make a roll to stay alive. Clasping Shields can help you avoid that, and not only that, we're actually allowed to make 3 Clasping Shields, so that covers almost everyone. Outside of fights against the Black Knight, it's not as powerful, but it still has block 2, and it is still a shield with a fairly decent attack profile. So I like these a lot, and I think it is extra cool that the design team has thought of this issue that hurts players that they need to play around, which is the Black Knight bouncing survivors off into the void, and has provided a tool that we can get to try and deal with that. I like this kind of design. I think it's really cool. So I've got a lot of time for the clasping shields. They come in the Black Knight box, and they're great. Piercing claws also come in the Black Knight box, and therefore are a Black Knight seed pattern. You also have a limit of 2 because they're a paired weapon. They require 2 iron and a leather. You need a berserker. You need heat. You need a heavy weapon. Berserker's a bit harder to get with Ark Survivors because berserker is specifically a fighting. Oh no, hang on. Yes, I know that Black Knight is a berserker, but yeah, it's a fighting art. I believe there is like another thing that could technically count as berserkers. I think it might be. Is it this? I don't think it's this. Yeah, there's a character card called the Berserker, so maybe that counts for Ark Survivors. I'd probably say so. In that case, because otherwise you can't craft this at all. Because I'm gonna put that away. Go away. Because it's very hard to get fighting arts with Ark Survivors, so this may be an alternative way of achieving that. I think it makes sense. The weapon itself is weapon melee Qatar metal finesse, 2 speed, 5+ accuracy, 7 strength with a left facing blue, red and a down facing blue, and paired as I mentioned, and it has barbed 2, which means perfect hits add +2 strength. And it has a little reward. If 3 or more of your attack rolls hit, you remove a token from the monster before drawing the hit locations. So part of the Black Knight's mechanics is that some of its toughness is constructed from toughness tokens, and this allows you to remove those from the Black Knight, which removes its protection and can result in an actual death blow, permanently killing the Black Knight out of your campaign. I think that's sad if you're going to do that, but the Black Knight is such a good boy. He deserves better. But, there are rewards for killing the Black Knight, and this is a tool to help you with that. But even without that, this is actually a very solid Qatar that's very good, and argues for you to use it paired. Barbed 2 is a good reward for having extra attack dice as well. I think it's great. I think it's very, very good, and it's constantly present in my campaigns because I'm pretty much Black Knight all the way, baby. Black Knight in every campaign because I'm not interested in having the hand turn up and do his cutscene. So, yeah. Okay, we got 2 left. They're both kings. Got Death Defier. This is Era 4. It requires death metal, 2 bone, and a heavy chain. So everything from the king here. A survivor who wounded a labyrinth hit location plots the king's demise. So this is something you're going to have to record if a survivor does this. And then their fingernails snap while scraping metal, and they gain 2 bleeding tokens when they depart. But the weapon you get is this. It's another dagger. It's a seed weapon melee grand dagger, heavy with death metal. It's got 3 speed, 6+ accuracy, 9 strength, razor sharp, and blindside, and a left facing affinity, and you cannot lose survival. Blindside is a special rule that when you wound the monster from its blind spot with this gear, you get to take all reflex reactions and turn them into failure reactions until the act ends. So it's a very powerful weapon for attacking from the blind spot, effectively meaning that you don't need to worry about reflexes as long as you wound. And this dagger's great at wounding with 9 strength plus razor sharp. Very, very potent weapon. As you may have seen in all of the daggers in here, they're all very good. There's been a concentrated effort from Team Death to make daggers more relevant. I appreciate it greatly, and I think the newer dagger designs are fantastic, and this is one of them. And then we've got Heartseeker. Again, Seed King. This costs 2 death metal, 2 hide, 1 Pylorex. You need a survivor to be sucked into Kingdom Death. then they'll suffer a broken rib, which not a big deal. Broken ribs are not a major negative, and they can be, I think they can be fixed with bed. Yeah, can be fixed with bed, so not a huge deal at all. And the weapon itself is Seed Weapon Melee Grand Sword Heavy Death Metal. It's got 2 speed, 5+ accuracy, and 11 strength with a left facing blue and a right facing red affinity. It has Razor Sharp again, it has Impeccable, which we've already been through before a few times, and it ignores First Strike when attacking this weapon because it's a Heart Seeker. It's not going to be pulled away from its objective. Super cool weapon, very strong. Both of these are incredibly strong, as they should be. The king weapons across the board are very powerful. I think all of them are grand, as well as being something else. But these double weapon types are super cool because you get to combine them together. Grand is not incredibly powerful in the late game just because of Indomitable, but it is still kind of strong because you get to knock the monster down and you can ignore reactions. That's with the weapon specialization on Grand. So I think these are both fantastic weapons, but you're going to say that about every single weapon that comes from the king is really, really good. Our final 3 are the armor sets. So each of these is a hybrid armor set, and they require core monsters to be present. This one is the Butcher, this one is the Screaming Antelope and the White Lion, and this is the Screaming Antelope and the Phoenix. So you'll only include them if you have both of these in. We'll start with the Imitation Butcher Mask because this is the Era 1 card. It needs 3 leather and an iron. You have to have had a survivor frenzied in the previous year, and then you gain the Imitation Butcher armor, and you add the Ballad of the Butcher to the settlement deck, settlement event deck. It doesn't go in there straight away. It's this. Basically, a survivor inspired by the ferocity of the Butcher dons an imitation outfit, and they run amok in the settlement, causing children and adults terror. The power of the Butcher, even if imitated, is real. If you have drums, then the settlement reenacts its struggle against the Butcher to the steady thrum of stamping feet. Spirits lift, and you get a bonus to departing, 2 arm points to all hit locations, and +2 survival. If not, then all the departing survivors are going to gain prey. You should always have drums. Drums is one of those really good innovations that is fantastic for every settlement, so that's not a big deal. The lingering effect, if you have Inner Lantern, is you can do an inverted roar, which on a 1 gives you a shattered jaw, but for the rest of the rolls, 2+, you will, when depart, you'll suffer the frenzy brain trauma, which is useful for this armor set. So, hybrid armor sets are built from a bunch of different places. This one is constructed via the Imitation Butcher Mask, and also requires lantern cuirass, leather bracers, leather boots, and a leather skirt. This is kind of the layout I end up putting it in most of the time. The reason for that is that the Imitation Butcher Mask has some very tight requirements in regards to affinities. So, the Imitation Butcher Mask is Seed Armor, Set Mask, Leather, Metal, and Other. It gives you 4 armor points to the head, and it gives you -2 to all brain trauma rolls. Not great. Got to watch out for that. That's increased chance of dying to brain trauma. And the puzzle ability is if you get puzzle red plus another red and a blue, then at the start of your act, if you're insane, you gain an additional activation, allowing you to attack twice like the Butcher. Now, the tricky part of that is, if we look at this, we can see we're not getting any other red affinities from our gear grid at all. That's tough. So we kind of have to make some compromises if we're going to manage it, because we basically only have 4 slots to generate 3.5 red affinities from, because we get 1 there, and we need to have this connected as well. You might even see, like, this is usually how I consider it, because it gives you this blue, but you may just see like the Lantern Cuirass not being connected at all, and it's just sort of put somewhere else in order to give you more space for putting red affinities in. Interestingly, if you don't want to do the Imitation Butcher Mask, you can also get this online and get more armor points, but only the head and body are metal, so that's kind of not really so good unless you don't have the affinities to get the mask ability online. The armor set bonus gives you +2 movement, which is to cancel out this -2 movement on the Cuirass. And you gain the Infectious Lunacy Survivor status card, which is from the Butcher. If you remember, you will just gradually, whenever you suffer brain damage, you'll gain lunacy tokens, and at 3+, you remove them to suffer frenzy, so you get to frenzy yourself over and over and behave like a butcher, and if you are frenzied, you ignore monster attack rolls on an 8+, which you might remember is one of the best traits on the Butcher. It's a duplicate of this, making the Butcher is invincible. You are the Butcher now. You're invincible. Oh yeah, final thing, has hybrid armor sets. You get 5 armor points to all locations, and then you apply any additional bonuses after that. So this armor set is pretty durable with a total of base 25 armor points, 5 on each location, and that makes it pretty solid. I like this one, but it is awkward to use at times because of it's kind of not having the extra attack and having that -2 to brain trauma rolls is a little scary. Oh yeah, and I did bring it down here. This is the miniature for it. Not my favourite, but pretty cool. It does remind me of one sad thing about the Butcher, which is the cleavers don't have red affinities on them. If we grab the Butcher cleaver, see, no affinities, and the Killennium cleaver, see, also lacks any affinities. I think it's a real shame that these don't have some red affinities on them to better support that, because it would be sweet to be, you know, rocking like double cleavers, but you can't do all of that and have the red affinities. So this isn't my favourite of these 3 armour sets. I think it's my second most favourite, but thematics is incredible. Then we got Splinter armour. So the Splinter helm, Seed, White Lion, Screaming Antelope, Era 2. You need a white fur, a spiral horn, and a skull. And you need a Triathlon of Death to have happened in the Lantern Year, and that will allow you to get the Sprinter armor set bonus card in addition to the Sprinter helm. So the Sprinter helm is 3 armor points, but the hybrid armor set is 4, so it will be 4 if you have the full armor set. Armor set bone fur, +1 movement while insane, and it gives you, for an up and down red affinity puzzle, when you pounce you move your full movement and ignore the first reaction. Strong, very strong. Having a longer range pounce is super useful. As I've talked about many times before, pounce is great when combined with reach weapons, and ignoring reactions is really nice as well. But if we look at the layout, we can see how awkward all of this is. We don't have a single extra red affinity that we can connect directly, so we have to get them from other sources. Probably the weapons if we can. It's not terrible. Like, gaining extra insanity here is nice because that guarantees you being insane for the +1 movement, which is really good. This gives you access to the pounce ability. This provides extra accuracy on the pounce ability. And Screaming Skirt is here as 2, yay. Ultimately, it is awkward, and I think if you're not getting the Sprinter helm active, why are you using this kit? The armor set bonus, in addition to setting all hit locations at 4 points each, is before making a wound attempt, you may spend 1 survival to cancel your attack and roll away. Full move away from a monster in a straight line. You cannot use this if you draw the trap. So this is actually kind of really interesting in that it gives you a way to use frail weapons and not break them, but it also allows you to avoid really scary reactions and just get out of danger. Ultimately, I think this is the weakest of the 3 sets, though. The affinities are rough to deal with. The overall synergy of the entire thing is kind of a little bit of a mess. It's yet another attempt at pounce design, and it's just beaten by this. The Neko Twilight armor. Look how much better this is overall. Like, we're getting pounce here for just one slot with an additional evasion and 6 spaces, which could well be higher than our normal movement. Equal if we're insane with normal movement. Like, they just don't compare well. So I don't think this is great. I do think the miniature's pretty cool. I love the reference to feet here on the base, and it's quite sort of dynamic, and it's definitely giving run, like speedy sprinting. But ultimately, this is probably the weakest of all hybrid armors that have ever been printed, and mostly it's because of stuff like why doesn't White Line Gauntlet have red affinities on it, like here or here? You know, just something. But that's a White Lion armor issue overall. You may have a lot of fun with this, and you know, I can't deny sometimes I do stuff just because it's cool and looks cool, and I do think this armor set looks pretty cool. Finally, we have my favourite of the three. This is the Beast Hunter helm. It's Screaming Antelope and Phoenix. It requires a pelt, tail feathers, and an iron. You have to have a survivor who dealt a killing blow to a phoenix, another thing you need to track. You need records, and then you gain the Beast Hunter armor set. This is not a super high set of requirements. Just keep a survivor who's killed a phoenix alive, innovate records, and get these resources. Job done. And you get this, the Beast Hunter helm along with the armor set bonus. So the helm is Seed Armor Set Bone Fur with 4 armor points, but the full armor set will be 5 in all hit locations. It has an activated ability. Select an AI from the discard pile and place it on top of its basic action. The next time the monster performs basic action, it performs a selected card at -1 speed instead. So this lets you take the weakest action from the monster in its AI deck in discard pile and transfer it on top of the basic action and guarantee that the next basic action will be this instead. So that has a couple of things. First of all, you effectively deal a wound to the monster because you can just activate this and remove a card, and then if there are no more AI cards left in the deck, it dies even with an AI card sitting on top of the basic action because it's not in the deck anymore until it gets put back there, which is kind of interesting. I can't wait for Team Death to say it doesn't work like that, but then in which case they should word things better. It's just a really unique form of control that I think is super cool. It has a down-facing blue affinity, a right-facing green affinity. That means it combines with the other pieces of this armor set really neatly. We've got the ability to connect the green to the Phoenix Placard, or we can even connect the blue to the Phoenix Placard if we have a green that fits in that slot. So the helm supports the Placard really well. We've got Screaming Leg Warmers, again, +3 insanity on arrival. Can't complain. +1 insanity for departing here on the folds. Folds are probably the weakest part of this armor set. We get Screaming Braces for +2 to activating terrain. And of course, we have Phoenix Placard, which is one of the best body pieces in the entire game. If insane, ignore the first hit each round and suffer 1 brain damage instead. And we can see how this armor set is giving us insanity when departing and on arrival to make sure we're insane. And when you're a ranged character, which as we'll see, Beast Hunter armor is a ranged armor set. It's the first explicitly ranged based armor set. Just having a couple of points of ignoring hits goes a long way because you're so safe most of the time. So this set is fantastic. I mean, you've got so much flexibility because if you needed to, you can have it like this instead. We can put this over here. We've got just lots of ways we can play with this. As long as we're putting the placard in either positions 5 or 8, it is absolutely a-okay. I'm just always very impressed with this armor set. We get to the bonus. We have the aforementioned 5 in all hit locations, and we get Fainting Shot, which is we spend our activation and our movement to move our survivor 3 spaces away from the monster, activate an attack with a bow or arrow in your gear grid, This attack gains +3 accuracy and +3 range, so that makes up for the +3. The 3 spaces we moved away, we get that extra range, we get a ton of accuracy. Very strong. This is literal shoot and scoot, or scoot and shoot in this particular case, which is just a phenomenal way for ranged attacks to work in anything. Increasing the distance, dealing more accurate damage. This will work with bows and arrows, if you have arrows as well as the bow. That's fantastic. And the model is also not my favourite of the 3, if I'm honest, but it is pretty sweet. I mean, I think it's because it's quite a flat model. Like, it's just very two-dimensional on this, with the bow providing the thickness to the model. I like a model that's kind of moving in multiple directions at once, such as this, which sort of has like dimensionality in more than just, it's not just left right, it's actually forward backwards as well, with the twisting of the axe. And it's why I like the Sprinter armor as well. It's very, like, while it's compact, it's very dynamic. But I can't deny that this looks good, and it looks even better on the artwork. So yeah, it's my favourite of the 3, and it's one of the it's the best bow based armor set, which is great because of course the Phoenix has a bow in its kit, so it's nice that you have that. You know, it's the arc bow, which is the one that's modelled on here. So yeah, that is everything to do with seed patterns for now. I've talked through them all. I think seed patterns are very strong, very exciting, very interesting. They do increase your mental load quite a bit, because you need to remember not just the various requirements to be able to craft the given things, but you also need to remember what they are, because they're not just printed on settlement locations. You kind of need to have an organised way of remembering what you could possibly craft. This is a lot easier if you're using KDM Scribe, because if I remember correctly, it should just pull up what's craftable available for you to look at and remind you as you're going along. Shout out to that. Very good app. But yeah, it is a bit of extra mental load, but it is worth it. The seed pattern deck is phenomenal. It's a joy to play with. I am always happy whenever they add more cards to it, even if it increases the variance. I like that. As someone who replays these campaigns a lot, having more variety, having more variance feels good. So that is it. Anytime I talk about seed patterns in the future, they'll be rolled into other things, because this was a lot to go through, as I knew it would be. I don't know if there's going to be another video coming out this month. We have a fair bit of travelling we have to do in the middle of the month, and that cuts down the amount of time I have available to do other things. So we'll see, but hopefully I've got plenty of stuff I want to talk about. I just need to get to it. I have to stop now because this is role-playing night, and I've already shredded my voice, and I need to rest for a bit before we get into that. So until next time, happy crafting of your seed patterns and happy hunting.